Okay, right, we'll move on then. The next question is it safe to travel in vehicles with fellow workers?
Nick? Couldn't find the unmute button there. Okay, this might be one for me and maybe also for Alan Wilson to chip in on. There is going to be shortly published a piece of work from the CICV forum called Safe Return and Restart, and it details, as I've mentioned before, it details in quite a specific way the kind of setup that can be implemented to travel in a van with someone else, not from your household. So for example, if you've got a van with 2 seats in the front, really there should only be one person sitting in that van. You'd hope it would be the driver. And if there are 3 seats in the front, the guidance says that there could be one person on either side of that van with the blank seat in the middle. If there are 5 seats, 2 in the front and 3 in the back, then you would want obviously the drivers in their seat, and then in the back to the opposite side of the driver in the extreme diagonal seat from the driver. So that's the kind of guidance which is there. So really there should not be, if you've got a van with 5 seats in it, the maximum number of occupants, even for a 5-seater van, would be 2. I think the guidance will show. Alan, do you have any further comment on that?
I don't think so, Nick, especially. The only thing I would say is that all these guidelines are subject to amendment and change. You know, you probably all saw the First Minister's announcement in relation to the beginning of a return to work, and we'll be issuing more information about that either later today or on Monday with specific guides, etc. But I think it's fair to say that these things will be done incrementally. So I wouldn't say that, you know, Nick is correct in what she said in terms of the number of people in vans, but you shouldn't think that that's going to be something that will last for a huge period of time. You know, it will be tracked on an ongoing basis. So it's incremental beginnings. As I've said to many people before, and I'm sure you know this from yourself, you know, what the governments, I should say, across the UK are most apprehensive about is a spike in the COVID returning, and that would be almost worse than not returning at all, you know, because it would actually set us back even more. So I think in the early stages it's right to be very cautious, but as things move on and data shows that the R rate, as they're talking about, it doesn't spike any higher, then there will begin to be an ease in these situations. I was part of a Scottish Government task force meeting the other day where the Chief Statistician for Scotland was present, and he was saying that they'd done some mapping across some other countries where construction returned to work, and the R number had increased from about 0.7 to 1.6 in the first few weeks. And they're obviously cautious. They don't want to see that kind of level of infection rate in Scotland as well. So I think you probably will face a period, as Nick said, of you know, taking more caution in terms of travel, especially than you would do normally, obviously, but that will ease down as we begin to, you know, see the R number either remaining the same or not rising too highly in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. Anybody got any further questions around that? No. Okay, thanks very much, Nick and Alan. The next question is, what should be considered with regard to electrical safety when planning to reopen premises closed as part of the current restrictions? So, this one for Bob.
Yeah, again, having looked at this, we've drafted an article for the June version of Cable Talk to try and highlight how I see things going forward. Obviously, we're in a bit of a crisis at the moment. In the middle of March, there were a lot of premises, businesses that had to suddenly shut up shop. You know, things like bars, cafes, you know, gyms, schools, all that sort of stuff had to suddenly close. Construction sites, as you well know, and ideally these places, there should have been some sort of orderly shutdown of the electrical systems and mechanical systems within these premises. However, in some instances that may not have been possible or the case. So the condition that the installations have been left in might be okay. There might be a system in place where there has been a good maintenance regime in place within a property, and it's been adequately maintained prior to the shutdown. So in those sort of situations, you know, when the return, possibly all they'll need is some sort of routine check to make sure there's no breakages, signs of wear or tear, that sort of thing. However, you know, there might be instances where there are significant problems because maintenance hasn't been carried out properly, even prior to the shutdown. So maintenance might be a kind of focus. And what I've been trying to highlight in this article was the responsibilities of the duty holder within these organisations, within these businesses, within those businesses. There will be responsibilities under the Health and Safety at Work Act, specifically Regulation 4.2 under the Electricity at Work regulations, which places a duty on these people to make sure that the installations are maintained in a safe condition where a danger could otherwise arise. So any electrical system, that could be the fixed wiring, it could be the equipment that's connected up to it, that should be looked at and made sure that it's safe before they reopen. So those who are planning to reopen should be thinking about these things. You know, that there are adequate checks and maintenance carried out prior to reopening to ensure that the buildings are safe for not just their employees, but also for visitors and members of the public who might make use of the facilities. A lot of duty holders are obviously well aware of their responsibilities under health and safety legislation, and you'll know a lot of such businesses who you'll work for, who organise regular inspection and testing, whether that be periodic inspection and testing, or whether it be part testing. We're not allowed to call it part testing now for some reason. They don't like that. It's called in-service inspection and testing of electrical equipment, because it's not just portable equipment that should be looked at. It's all electrical equipment. You know, if you've got things like air conditioning units outside the building, all of these things should be looked at. It could be, you know, machinery in a woodworking shop or metal shop, a factory. All of that stuff should be looked at and checked regularly. The issue, I suppose, for the duty holder is how often these things should be checked. So I would be trying to highlight to them that a competent person would have to input into their assessment. They should really be risk assessing their installations and taking account of, you know, if it's a new installation that they're adopting, obviously there is guidance in Guidance Note 3 that the IET produce. So trying to highlight the tables on that. There is a table also that gives you recommended routine checks that should be carried out. Again, trying to highlight that to them. Doesn't necessarily need to be a skilled person electrically that does that sort of checking. It could be somebody else within their organisation, but as long as they've got the competence necessary to spot things like breakages and wear and tear, the deterioration, signs of overheating, that sort of thing. And they should also be confirming accessibility to equipment, making sure switch gear is secure, that doors are locked, and they should make sure that the equipment is operated, it actually works correctly during these routine checks. And if they don't work, then obviously maintenance is required. If the installation hasn't been looked after before the shutdown, perhaps there's been ongoing work, like on a construction site, for instance, there might have been ongoing work in the first place, then perhaps a more detailed inspection and test is needed. And again, the duty holder should be trying to access previous records of inspection and testing, because although it's not a legal requirement to keep such records, you know, certification, there's no requirement to keep electrical installation certificates or EICRs as such. It would be strongly recommended that they do so. Obviously, for maintenance purposes, they can look at the maintenance records, use that as part of the maintenance records to gauge how frequently inspection and tests should be done, to highlight any obvious problems, suitability of equipment for specific areas, that sort of thing. So how often should they carry out periodic inspection and tests? And again, the frequency given in guidance note 3 is advice. It's not a legal requirement, it's advice. However, they should be taking on board that advice and then using their judgment on how the installation is used. You know, what type of people are using the installation? Is it skilled people? Is it ordinary people? And could it be children, people with disabilities? They need to consider that. How often is the installation in use? How frequent do they use certain equipment? You know, there's a lot of considerations that they need to also take on board besides just maybe the advice that's given in guidance note 3, which is relative to a new installation and when it undergoes its first periodic inspection and test. Thereafter, if they've had periodic inspection and test done previously, the competent person, the skilled person with the knowledge, should be advising them on what the date is for the next periodic inspection and test. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be what's in the table. It could be something else. It could be shortened. It could be longer. It's, you know, again, that should be a risk assessed thing, depending on how well the installation is maintained, etc. So there's a number of considerations there that the duty holder, remember, it's the duty holder's responsibility, should be taken on board. Out with that, as I say, you could be looking at the equipment that's connected up to the fixed wiring. I mentioned the word pack testing, but it's not really pack testing. It's all electrical equipment. And when that goes in on a new installation, it's not subject to any inspection and testing. BS 7671 only looks at the fixed wiring. So that electrical equipment that's connected up to it, whether it be a plug top or whether it's an isolator or a switch fuse, that often falls between the gaps and duty holders forget about it. So we should be looking at that and should be reminding them about that. So when it's new, you're relying on compliance with maybe the low voltage directive and the CE marking on the electrical equipment. You're relying on it being checked in line with Chapter 64 for initial verification in BS 7671. But the actual equipment isn't inspected and tested itself. So once it's in use, that's where the code of practice that the IET produce for in-service inspection and testing of electrical equipment. It's the 4th edition, but they are working on the 5th edition. That'll come out possibly later this year in October. And again, the duty holders' responsibility was one of the key things we're trying to flag up to the duty holders to remember to risk assess. It's maybe not necessarily just a set table that used to be in the standard, although I've reproduced that in the article for members. It could be something else, you know, particularly obviously equipment that's portable or handheld would be the most dangerous, certainly class 1. So that should be subject to quite frequent inspection and testing, as I say. How often, that's maybe a bit subjective. So if they do that, if they make sure that they've done perhaps as a minimum routine checks on the installation before they put it back in service, a lot of the installations would obviously be fairly easy to start up again, going into bars, pubs, etc. In fact, there might be insurance and licensing requirements that requires inspection and testing anyway before they reopen. So there's an area of work there, and as I say, I also think there's an area of work in relation to any maintenance that's required. Okay, the shutdown, there might not be wear and tear and breakages, but things like emergency lighting systems, you know, if they've been in a building that's been shut for 3 or 4 months, your emergency lighting is supposed to be checked monthly. So there could be instances where there's batteries that have discharged. Certainly fire alarm systems should be maintained on a regular basis. Security systems, CCTV systems, all of these things need to be maintained and looked at. So they should be checked before they put the building back into operation. As I say, if they don't have previous records, if the installation hasn't been looked after, well, maybe that's an opportunity for them to redress that and to get a more thorough inspection and test, not just of the fixed wire, but the equipment as well, and carry out the necessary maintenance that might be needed to make sure that that building is safe, so that people returning to work will be safe, regardless of all this COVID stuff, electrically safe. So, as I say, hopefully you'll find that an interesting article in Cable Talk when it comes out. As I say, I've also reproduced some of these tables that are in IET Guidance Note 3 and in-service inspection and test code of practice for your information. But certainly if you've got any questions on that, happy to answer as we start. Any questions at all?
No? Okay, thank you very much, Bob.